Well, welcome out there once again to my program. Always a pleasure to be here. Always a pleasure to have you out there in the audience. This is post-Christmas. New Year's Eve is coming up, so be careful out there, Drink too much, it's not good, especially if you get on the road and you're driving. If you're going to drink a lot, use a designated driver. And New Year's Eve tends to have a lot of people out there, and it's historically a fact that have, had something to drink. So my caution to you is be careful. I have a poem I'm going to read. This is called A Christmas Poem. This was sent to me by a friend of mine who now lives in Florida, and I read it once, but then I thought it was quite nice. So there's a few pages here, but I'll read quickly. It's called A Christmas Poem. The embers glowed softly, and in a dim light I gazed round the room, and I cherished the sight. My wife was asleep, her head on my chest, my daughter beside me, angelic in rest. Outside the snow fell, a blanket of white, transforming the yard to a winter delight. The sparkling lights in the tree, I believe, completed the magic that was Christmas Eve. My eyelids were heavy, my breathing was deep. Secure and surrounded by love, I would sleep. In perfect contentment, or so it would seem. So I slumbered. Perhaps I started to dream. The sound wasn't loud and it wasn't too near, but I opened my eyes when it tickled my ear. Perhaps just a cough, I didn't quite know. Then the sure sound of footsteps outside in the snow. My soul gave a tremble. I struggled to hear, and I crept to the door just to see who was near. Standing out in the cold, in the dark of the night, a lone figure stood, his face weary and tight. A soldier, I puzzled, some 20 years old. Perhaps a Marine, huddled here in the cold, alone in the dark. He looked up and smiled, standing watch over me and my wife and my child. What are you doing? I asked without fear. Come in this moment. It's freezing out there. Put down your pack. Brush the snow from your sleeve. You should be at home on a cold Christmas Eve. For barely a moment, I saw his eyes shift away from the cold and the snow blown in drifts to the window that danced with a warm fire's light. Then he sighed and he said, "It's really all right. I'm out here by choice. I'm here every night. It's my duty to stand at the front of the line that separates you from the darkest of times. No one had to ask or beg or implore. I am proud to stand here like my fathers before. My grandpa died at Pearl Harbor on a day in December." Then he sighed. That's a Christmas Graham always remembers. My dad stood his watch in the jungles of Nam. And now it is my turn, and so I am here. I've not seen my own son in more than a while, but my wife sends me pictures. He sure got her smile. Then he bent and he carefully pulled from his bag the red, white, and blue, an American flag. I can live through the cold and the being alone, away from my family, my house, and my home. I can stand at my post through the rain and the sleet. I can sleep in a foxhole with little to eat. I can carry the weight of killing another, or lay down my life for my sister or brother, who stand at the front against any and all to ensure for all time that this flag will not fall. So, go back inside, he said. Harbor no fright. Your family is waiting, and I'll be all right. But isn't there something I can do at the least? Give you money, I asked, or prepare you a feast? It seems all too little for all that you've done for being away from your wife and your son. Then his eyes swelled a tear that held no regret. Just tell us you love us and never forget to fight for our rights at home while we're gone. To stand your own watch, no matter how long, for when we come home, either standing or dead, to know you remember we fought and we bled. Is enough payment, and with all that we will trust that you matter to us as you matter to us. Well, I thought that was quite an interesting poem.
It was.
It might be somewhat lengthy, but it's an indication of, some caring and feeling for American soldiers that might not be home over the Christmas holidays. And I'm one of them. I spent 3 Christmases away and 3 New Year's away. Matter of fact, 2 of them were overseas, so I got an understanding of what the poem is about. Well, I want to give I hope you enjoyed the poem, and I want to give you the tip of the week, legal tip of the week. And this is basically in regards to what they call an express easement. And the case originated between 2 people who owned houses side by side, and there was a driveway between the 2 houses. One of the houses was sold a number of times, and the eventual owner thought that he had an easement going along that driveway to get to the back of his property. Well, come to find out that what happened was when he purchased the house and his predecessors in title, there was no indication of an easement in the transfer, in the deed transfer. Usually you have to have an express easement. There are other types of easement, but I'm talking about an express easement. And it's sort of a word that it has its own meaning. In a deed, it's expressed there. It's noted that in this case here, if the person did have an easement to travel over that driveway, would have mentioned it in the deed that he had when he purchased the property. But for some reason, it was overlooked. Maybe he would not have bought the property. Maybe he probably just expected he could use the driveway. You can't do that. You've got to look at the deed closely and make sure if you want to use that driveway or some sort of an easement, that it's expressed in the deed. So that's my my legal tip of the week. And I'm sure you understood that, Gabe. Right?
I did.
You have there's a lot of people get very disappointed. They see the driveway and they just make the assumption that they're going to be able to use it, but
You make assumptions about a lot of things that, and then you find out later that it's not what you thought, and it can be costly sometimes.
Yeah. There was an interesting program on TV, and basically this was in West Virginia. In West Virginia, apparently, in some counties in West Virginia, they're having very, very dreadful opiate problems. And it's grown-ups, of course. It could be teenagers. Apparently, it's some of the worst episodes in the whole country. And what they had was not a superintendent, principal of, it was more or less a grammar school and possibly a high school too, that had originated a session early in the morning by the teachers of the school. There didn't seem to be that many teachers. Probably it was a small school. It looked like there was maybe 10 of them. But what was interesting about that, and I bring this up because I want to know if the Fall Rivers School District has any type of mechanism like this, is that the teachers would discuss what they read in the newspaper the prior day. And if any of them saw where any of the students that they have, their parents were arrested. So that when a child came to school, that child would be consoled immediately. That child would be brought to the side and to find out if there was any traumatic effect that could have, cause the child not to pay attention. Maybe there was a removal of some sort, maybe DCF stepped in, maybe because the parents were arrested. And if it's, opiates, drug problem, we've seen scenes on TV that the child would need a special assistant at that time. Does the Fall River school system have anything of that sort?
Not that I'm aware of. You're talking about almost a very formalized program where they actually try to come up with this information and see what they can find on the students in order to better deal with their needs. I don't know about now, so I don't think we have anything quite that formalized. It may be more haphazard where someone happens to find out something and whatnot. I don't know about right now, but years ago when I actually worked in the system, I found that sometimes the communication on things like that were not very good. You might have had someone from an outside agency who dealt with a child. Sometimes you actually had some good communication between the agency and the school personnel. Sometimes you didn't, and a lot of times you didn't know something that might have been very important factual information about the student himself.
Now, so let's say the night before, Monday night, this is Tuesday morning, the night before, the parents, police go to the parents' house because there's some sort of a disturbance, maybe domestic violence, maybe the police were there, insofar as a drug bust. The child or children usually removed from the house almost immediately. DCF is contacted. They have someone who will go down there to, have emergency watch, remove the children, place them in foster care. I guess my question is the school department, let's say it's determined that the child is going to Durfee or, some other school, do you know if the school department is notified the next day, at least? Because, of course, at night they wouldn't, but we'll say Tuesday morning, the school department will get a phone call and say, Mary Lynn, her parents were taken from the house. She's been placed in foster care. She'll be in school today, but we're giving you this information so that you might give her some special attention.
Right. When, as I said, when I was working for the school department, we're talking almost 10 years ago. I don't remember that sort of thing happening much. It might have happened, but I don't think it was a formal thing where it would happen routinely. It could be that things may be a little bit better now, that there's a lot more cooperation and communication between agencies on the outside and people on the inside. But I'm not absolutely sure, so I couldn't tell you for sure yes or no.
And who would be contacted if a social worker is usually placed immediately on a case? Who would, in the school system, do you believe would be contacted if contact is being made? Who would?
Well, the easiest person to go to would probably be the building principal. And if the principal felt that a particular individual should be on top of this, then that work would be delegated. But it could also happen that, for instance, if it is some social issue and it is a counselor from an outside agency, that it could go to, let's say, the adjustment counselor at that particular school. You know,
All right,
without-
so it would,
it could certainly go that way because they're pretty much on the same level, doing many of the same, dealing with many of the same issues. So it could happen that way.
sometimes the, the child is placed with kin, family members. That's usually what they want to do, pretty much immediately. Is If there's family available, place the child with family. They have like you know, the mother has a sister. She might have a family of her own. They're stable. The children go over there. Now, would it behoove the, you know, the aunt to make the phone call,
Sure,
just in case?
sure.
So
That would make a lot of sense.
I'm
you know,
so-and-so, my niece is here, she was you know, removed, she'll be going to school today, but she might be feeling a little bewildered, you know, because it's a traumatic experience.
Sure, and it's
The
not
cops,
just...
the police go over there.
And it's not just a question of being bewildered. The person may be depressed, the child may be depressed, withdrawn. The child may be acting out. You know, some of the behavior problems that
yeah.
you see
Why am I-
could be as a result of that. So if you know that information, it puts a different perspective on just exactly why the child is doing what he's doing, as opposed to you know, the person getting totally upset because thinking that that this behavior is just coming out of the blue, and because this child is just wants to misbehave, and there may be something behind that.
Maybe hold the child out of class for that morning until make sure the child is stabilized, because sometimes, and you might know, that is when these things happen and the police go to the house, it can be a nightmare.
Absolutely.
I mean, screaming, hollering, the children are crying. They don't understand why they have to leave their mother. They have to be physically carried away. And older ones, in a way, somewhat have to be restrained. They just don't understand what's going on. And I imagine they don't understand whether it's permanent or just, you know, for a weekend or something like that.
And it's a tough decision for them to make, because on the one hand there's the importance of protecting the child physically, but the other side is there's the emotional attachment that the child has with the family, which is why in most cases social agencies do try to reunite the family when and if possible.
Now, would it be, in some cases, from your experience, you know, good to keep the child away from school for a day or two? So in a new foster setting, to let them settle down a little?
It depends. Sometimes you could argue the opposite. The child's being in school might be a distraction for some of the things that he's concerned about. Plus you would assume that he would have some friends in school.
Oh, yeah.
So that whole social
There's a little
context
comfort
would
factor
get
there,
correct.
probably.
So as opposed to being alone, if he's alone with a new family that he doesn't know very well, that could actually be even more bothersome, coming on the heels of his being taken away from his original family.
Now, we looked at that, you've got that,
Yes.
that page there. There's three of them here. This is a seminar that I attended at the end of November, and basically it's titled School Stability for Youth in Foster Care. And it basically says the new legal landscape under the Every Student Succeeds Act. So this is new. Like I mentioned, this is a seminar, legal seminar I attended at the end of November, and this is going to be the law. So, but the three things that were sort of prominent, and they're listed here, and I'll read the first one. It says, and you can make comments. All foster children now have a right to remain in school of origin under new provisions of Title I Maybe you can explain it. What is Title I?
Title I is a federal program. It provides funds for different communities that I suppose there must be some eligibility criteria for them to receive those funds. I think that there are a wide range of uses that money can have. At one time, it was simply for some supplemental help, and they would provide different personnel, whether teachers or counselors or whatever, for supplemental help. And I think it's beyond that now.
So in other words, under Title I, they could hire someone.
Correct, for supplemental help in the schools, and the schools used to be designated. For instance, if the school, I believe there was a poverty factor. It could have been determined by school lunches or whatever. So you had to have a certain percentage of the kids below that level, or who qualified, let's say, for free lunch, in order for that school to be serviced by Title I.
The more free lunches, the better opportunity.
Something like that, and they've even changed the whole issue of free lunch now, where it's not as easy to qualify as being economically deprived or whatever.
Let me just mention this, because you just reminded me, in that program, the principal, she said that we give every child breakfast,
Mm-hmm.
and we give every child dinner.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
And she said, and we give them clothes. If we find that they need clothes, we make sure they have their clothes. So it's almost as though, that's nice, but it's like the school system going off to be like a social welfare
right,
agency.
and I know where you're headed. You're probably headed to the point of saying, where does the parent's responsibility begin and end?
A parent can lay in bed.
That's correct.
You'll get your breakfast in school.
But the dilemma
And don't
is,
worry about packing a lunch. I'm not making one. Get
Correct.
that in school too.
and if you're late, you don't get your breakfast maybe, because if you're late because I can't take you to school, I won't take you to school on time, then you may not get your breakfast.
And that's not so uncommon.
No, it is not. You're absolutely right. But the dilemma is, if you strike a hard line on that, if you're too hard a line on that, then you're shortchanging the kid, because the parent may not come through for that kid in any case. So
There are some out there that they're terrible.
it's and it's gotten worse over time. At least certainly in this community it has.
I mean, kids trudging to school with holes in their shoes and snow, no hat, no gloves, buttons missing from their jacket. So I guess there is, that need. So Title I, back to Title I, it's still in effect.
Right, and I believe again you have to the school, you may service the whole school, but the school has to qualify based on that low income criteria. Low income, there may be other criteria, but I think it's mostly economic.
So it says under new provisions. I don't expect you to know the new provisions because this just came out. But
Although I think as I look at some of this stuff, it may be coming into law now. However, bits and pieces of this have been in effect over time. Some of this is not that new. This thing about foster children having a right to remain in the school of origin, I've heard of that while serving on a committee in Fall River. So I think that was put into practice, even though it may not have been a law. But now it's becoming officially a law. So you definitely have to. There's some more teeth to it.
So maybe some systems were already had some sort of a program like this, and maybe some other systems didn't.
Maybe less. I'm sure it wasn't as formal, but I've heard of this. So you're saying that the law is coming into effect now, but I've heard of this well before this law has been put into effect.
Okay. we're getting down to the end of the program. Boy,
Wow.
it's going fast. And okay, let's get to the second one quickly. All foster children have a right to immediate enrollment if moving to a new school.
Right.
So if someone from Fall River gets placed in Somerset in
Correct.
foster care, the next day, that child can be brought to the Somerset school system and
right.
say, enroll me,
You got to be enrolled.
and that's it. It's
Right.
no come back next week or next month.
Well, and again, stuff like that I think we've been doing for a long time. For the most part, I remember a kid came in our doorstep. We had to register him. You know, it didn't matter that the enrollment was high, that maybe class size was high. Somehow, somewhere, we had to make room for this kid.
Okay, in a public school system.
Correct. There's no turning anybody away.
Yeah. And that doesn't apply to Diamond.
No. Let me think. That's based on space for the most
Suppose
part.
the student is at another regional vocational school, and for some reason that child, 14, 15 years old, gets placed in foster care
Right.
in Fall River. And, the child shows up at Diamond with the social worker, et cetera, and his lawyer, because sometimes they're appointed counsel. I've represented many children along the years, and you say, we want you to enroll this child.
Yeah, that's a good question. I'm not sure. I don't know for sure, but the fact that he's coming from another vocational school, particularly if it's the same similar program, you would think that it would be easy. That is the most appropriate education for him, based on where he had been before.
Yeah, could be a sophomore in a carpentry shop.
Correct.
See, putting him in Durfee is going to be like,
Right.
what am I doing here?
But
That could be
particularly
the end of his career as far as vocational education.
it could be the end of his career as far as education. Period.
Well, that's another thing too. The numerous movements of children in foster care. It's been shown statistically that they don't do as well as a child that remains in the school system for the duration of their education. You find that?
And it makes sense because it's not just the continuity of what he's learning from school to school, different classes, but it's also the social context. If he stays put in one place for a while, that's support.
Well, we're down to the end of the program here. I'm getting a message. Gabe, always good to have you on the show. We'll see you in 3 weeks.
Thank you. Sounds good.
Let Joe know.
I will let him know.
And I want to thank everybody out there for watching. If you have any questions in regards to the education system, etc., give Mr. Andrade a call. Call Joe Martin. So you can even call me, and when they come on, I'll ask them the question. Okay? So, thank you out there for watching. I'll see you next time.